Depending on where you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. To me, seated in South India, it's almost the close of the day, the end of a pretty long work day, but there's never an opportunity. There's nothing as exciting as talking about IT service management to an audience that's willing to listen. So thank you so much for taking the time to join the webinar today. My name is Kumar, and I'm from the marketing team at the IT service management practice at ManageEngine. And this is my 10th year at ManageEngine. And if you look at the past decade, right, I've got the opportunity to work with so many customers on their IT service management implementations. Um, Being able to look at a lot of developments, how and seeing how this industry has evolved from the perspective of the end user, from the perspective of vendors, from the perspective of technology. And uh, when we go around the world meeting with customers at managing events or industry trade shows, when we meet IT service desk professionals, one term that keeps cropping up over and over again, especially in the last 2 years, is digital transformation, right? And what we wanted to do through this webinar was, to set, you know, the terms clear on what we see as digital transformation. What impact does digital transformation have on IT service desks, and how should we be prepared? You know, how should we evolve? How we should we change in this era of digital transformation? With that, right, let me quickly go over the company that I work for in a minute. Now, ManageEngine is the IT management division of a larger company called Zoho Corporation. Now, Zoho Corporation has been around for the last 2 decades, and we're well known by the Zoho brand, which delivers business productivity and office collaboration tools on the cloud. We've got about 35, 40 million users using Zoho services. And ManageEngine is the enterprise IT management solutions division with over 90 products, with a presence in about 190 plus countries, right? And if you look at the suite of IT management solutions that ManageEngine offers, the kind of breadth is pretty unparalleled, starting from service management to Active Directory management to unified endpoint management to security management, operations management, and analytics. These are the core functions or practices within ManageEngine. But the point is, we try to be a one-stop shop for all things IT management, right? And coming to the topic of the day, the changing role of ITSM in the era of digital transformation. If you look at it, right, the technologies that are listed on the screen, be it cloud, mobility, big data, social networks, machine intelligence, IoT, all of these impact our lives in some way or the other. But you know what? When these technologies come together, they bring about disruption. They bring about irreversible changes on how we operate. For example, mobile phones have been around for 2 decades now. The cloud has been around for almost the same time, right? But when the mobile and the cloud as technologies meet, intersect, right? That causes disruption. For example, right within your smartphone, the way we act, the way we think, the way businesses happen, everything is disrupted, right? And when these technologies come together and in pairs or in whatever numbers they may come together, and when they cause disruption, there are three things that happen as part of this disruption. One is, you know, the whole uh, function of IT, right, is pressurized to demonstrate value, to climb higher in the value chain. For example, take Netflix, right? Statistics show that the number of people watching streaming shows today far outweigh the number of people watching television, right? Our cab experience, our taxi experience has been completely disrupted by Uber. Okay, so businesses are forced to migrate in value, and that has to be spearheaded by IT teams. The next thing that happens as part of this disruption is that organizations become very decentralized. Now, there was a point when IT was the single point of contact, was the technology provider for all things needed in the organization. But today, now I work in a marketing team, and when I need a software, I just go sign up for a service on the cloud and just get it rolling, right? So there is so much decentralization. Again, there are issues like privacy and all of that which needs to be taken care of. But the point is, we're moving towards such a very decentralized setup. And the third aspect of this disruption is that customer expectations are getting transformed, right? This is a generation which is used to Facebook. This is a generation which is used to mobile apps. And we cannot, as IT teams, have them put up with clunky software, with legacy software. And anybody talking about digital transformation, right, is like a person at a traffic signal where all three lights are glowing. Now, I don't know if I should see the red and stop and not do anything, or should I see the orange and be prepared? Should I look around, be cautious, try to understand what this digital disruption, digital transformation is all about? Or should I see the green light and dive straight in, right? Whatever we do, the underlying fact is that these changes, these disruptions are happening around us, and it is imperative for the IT organization to embrace this change and to roll this out into business and take our business to the next level, right? And what this means is for IT teams is to take these technologies that we just saw, cloud, mobility, or even phenomenons like the emphasis on privacy. There's so much talked about on GDPR. Every country is coming up with its own privacy um, framework, right? Technology is not the only disruption around us. There's so much in terms of practices. There's so much in terms of compliance, in terms of processes. Now we need to take all of these, right, and deliver three things. One is a deeper contextual integration. How can we make business functions work better together? How can we keep our users happy, keep our stakeholders knit together, and offer them personalized experiences? And how can we do all of this, right, at an IT for the masses economy? When I say IT for the masses economy, it still means, your budgets are still the same. The number of people, the number of disruptions, the number of elements in your IT infrastructure is increasing, but the cost is intact, and you need to deliver more with less. And the next 30 minutes would take us through how we as IT service desk teams, how we in the IT service management function can actually ace this digital transformation, disruption, and meet the expectations of the business and our users. Okay? In a nutshell, in a nutshell, there's only five things, right, that we need to do, right? I've tried to list these as five transformations, right? We need to move from processing tickets to being the control center of IT. We need to move from just tracking metrics to connecting the dots. We need to move from executing IT service management to implementing enterprise service management. We need to move from servicing end users to transforming user experience. And we need to finally move from just building channels to building bridges with our users. And we're going to look at each of these points in detail. The first thing that ITSM should do as it transforms in a DX environment is that the service desk should be the control center of your IT. Now, if you look at it, there are different functions in IT and they're all organized, and they work in silos. There's security management, there's service management, there's Active Directory management, operations, endpoint management, analytics. This is how most IT is organized. And the implications are this, right? Now, when you are a service desk team, which is seated apart, which functions differently from the rest of the IT management functions, right? You are not seeing any streamlining or standardization of process. There is hardly any um, control or visibility of what happens elsewhere. I'm going to give you an example and take you through this, okay? And we're unable to gain insight on what actually happens with the kind of data that we gather to support the decisions we make, right? And any IT service management function in the era of digital transformation should transform to what we call 360-degree ITSM, okay? Where the service desk is at the heart of IT, right? And think of it as an air traffic control center, right? In an airport, there are so many planes that keep landing and taking off. In a busy airport, maybe, 2 or 3 every 30 seconds, every minute, right? But you should be at a vantage point where you have visibility and control of whatever's happening around you. That is the very first step that you can take to get yourself organized and be prepared for the digital transformation disruption. Now let's take a small example, right? Here's a bunch of tasks that we have to onboard an end user, a new user, an employee in the organization, right? And we do this all the time. This is pretty common. You create an entry in the Active Directory, you create an Exchange mailbox, you create the Office 365 accounts, and then provision a laptop, install the software, and then provision a mobile device based on the profile with the required apps, right? And this is pretty much standard, right? But what happens is it can run into rough weather, right? Now, most of us, have to log out of the service desk tool, go into the Active Directory, do the stuff, right? And then use a different tool to get the software pushed. And then, use a different process and mechanism to provision the mobile device, right? What? I want you to ask this question. What if we could do all of these tasks, right? From within the ticket. Now, I want you guys to think, what is the function of a ticket today in your service management operations? Is it just an atomic, lifeless entity, a system of record that just sits there in a service desk tool, right? Just keeping historical information, or as I said, as a system of record? Or is it the most powerful entity from which you can actually work with and empower other IT management functions? Like in the case that I mentioned, right? Can I create a user in the Active Directory from within my ticket? Can I actually configure and push software into that laptop from within my ticket? Can I actually provision that mobile device from within my ticket? What is the role of my ticket in this new age ITSM, right? Is it a helpless, hapless entity of record sitting there doing nothing? Or is it the most powerful entity in my service management operations, right? And in this case, right, I just have a ticket and the ticket has a drop down. Of course, whatever I'm showing is from the ManageEngine suite of solutions, but the larger purpose is for you to think if you are able to do all of this in your service management operations. In this case, I just go create an Active Directory account. I provide the first name, last name, immediately the logon name, the password, and all of it is automatically generated and the AD account is created, right? All I need to do is from within the ticket, just say install software, right? I specify the workstation name and the software, and I just, decide to install the software, right? I associate a device from within the ticket, right? I just have to select a device, select a profile, it gets configured, and it's ready to be provisioned to the user. And I'm doing all of this from within this small ticket, right? So here goes my first question to you, right? As I said, we're offering $25 Amazon vouchers for 5 winners, selected randomly. So we would appreciate all the answers you could give. So the question is your service desk operation closely knit with other IT management functions, right? I gave you the example of an employee onboarding scenario. So you need to see if from within your ticket, you are able to reach out, work with, and empower with other IT management functions, be it operations management, be it security management, be it endpoint management, anything. Brilliant. Thank you for the responses. So the first transition that we need to make is go from processing tickets to being the control center of IT. I want you to imagine your service desk to be an air traffic control, right? And for that, you got to start building an integrated approach to your service management. Now, the second aspect of this transformation is that IT service desks typically deal with a lot of data. Now, what do we do with the data? Do we just generate metrics, or do we actually do we read the fine print and are able to have an analytic strategy in place? Now, fundamentally, we track a lot of metrics. It could be, the number of tickets logged, agent productivity, first call resolution rates, customer satisfaction. All of these are metrics. They track, count, and present data. They're informational. But metrics cannot offer strategic insights. On the other hand, successful analytics, right, can help you connect the dots, give you actionable insights, and recommend a course of action. Let me give you a few examples, right? On this slide here, the metric gives you the count of the incidents you closed last quarter. But the true meaning analytics would give you an idea if you could close more incidents without ramping up the team, right? Metrics will tell you how many agents you have, but analytics would tell you if your agents are optimized to meet this year's service desk goals. Metrics would give you the average cost to resolve an incident, right? But analytics would give you the insight if you could actually reduce the cost per ticket without adjusting your IT budget. Now, poll number 2. Now, you got to answer this question if you agree or disagree with me. Customer satisfaction is directly proportional to the first call resolution rate, which means the sooner I'm able to service calls, the sooner I'm able to service my tickets through the first call, through the first contact, the higher is my customer satisfaction levels, right? Thank you. Most of you are, 91% of the responses received so far actually agree with me. Now, I'm going to contest your answer with a scenario. Now, here's a situation in a company when the customer satisfaction levels took a hit. So, the average satisfaction rating started coming down across functions. So, people were not happy with the technical expertise, with the resolution provided. So, this is the insight got by the service desk team. Okay, but when they looked at their first call resolution rates, it was actually going higher, right? It was on an upswing. Now, this was interesting. The FCR is going up, but the customer satisfaction levels are coming down. Now, what was happening? They dug in a little deeper and they also found out that the average resolution trend was going down. The average time to resolve a ticket was actually going down. Now, this should be good news. The FCR is going up, the average resolution time is coming down. So, obviously, customer satisfaction should be higher. But what was happening was the request reopen rates were also going up. Now, remember, the resolution time is coming down, but the request reopen rates were also going up. Now, each of the graphs that I showed you are metrics, but when you connect them together, right? When you connect them together, you get the true insights. Now, what was happening was technicians were prematurely closing the tickets to improve the resolution time. They were given a task, a metric, a goal to keep the resolution time low. Now, in their eagerness to actually improve the resolution times, they provided resolutions that wouldn't actually solve the problems of the end user. And so the customers would end up, right? When I say customers, the customers for IT are the end users in the organization, would actually provide low ratings and end up reopening the tickets. Okay? So it is important that you measure. It is even more important that you connect the dots, right? And understand and gain the insights that these metrics offer together. Which brings us to the next poll of the day, right? Now, how many of you here can confidently say that you connect the dots between your numbers, the metrics that you generate in your IT service management practice, and you are able to glean such insights? How many of us are able to connect the dots between our metrics and have an analytic strategy in place to give us the story, to give us the insights? Thank you for your response. What is important is not keeping track of metrics, but in the age of digital transformation, connect the dots and discover the meaning in data. The next disruption, the next way we should be prepared for this disruption is that our service management should cross the boundaries of IT. Now, this is interesting. Now, if you look at the state of service management today, right, it's very different from how it is in IT versus other business functions that play a role which is very similar to IT. Now, when I say very similar to IT, take HR for example, right? Now, you want a copy of your payslip, that's a service request, right? You probably have not been credited a certain benefit with your monthly salary, that's an incident. You would want to get back to them and set it right. Take, for example, facilities, right? You want a new workplace to be provisioned, a bigger one, that's a service request, right? Let's say some furniture is broken, that's an incident. Now, there are so many other teams, business functions in the company, in an organization, which are just like IT. They service end users too. Now, you may be a technician or an agent in your IT service management scheme of things, but you are a requester when it comes to approaching the HR folks. You are an end user. Similarly, the HR person would be an end user when they approach IT. But the point is, there are so many non IT teams in the company that perform functions very similar to IT. They service end users to get their work done better and quicker. But the similarity ends there. If you look at service management processes, frameworks, workflows, metrics, technology, it is far more streamlined in IT service management teams, whereas they are practically non existent in other business functions, right? And we need to move from a scenario where I email the facilities folks, where I call the legal desk, where I chat to the finance help desk, where I use a self service portal to access my IT instance, to a unified way where best practices that have been modeled and perfected in IT over the last 3 decades to proliferate the organization, to proliferate other departments, and offer a streamlined experience to the end users and the technicians or agents in those business functions alike, right? And I want you to start imagining the concept of an enterprise service desk, right? Where I just go to support.mycompany.com and I'm presented with one single portal with different instances. If I want a HR ticket, I go into HR ticket. If I go into the HR portal, if I go into the IT portal, that helps me, gives me a list of catalog items or templates to raise tickets to my IT service desk teams, right? Are we able to keep all our users together in a single enterprise directory? Are we able to offer our users one portal so that they remember one or two or three or four passwords less, right? Are we able to give a unified service management experience that we have perfected in IT to other business functions that exist in the organization? Do we have the concept of a credential vault where every single password used in the company is stored together, right? Do we have a practice where every analytics in the company, where the marketing and the sales dashboards and the finance dashboards sit side by side? Of course, we give role based access. Of course, there's privileged access. But the point is, as a company, as an organization, right? Have we tied them all together, right? And as an IT service desk team, having worked on IT service management processes, having worked with IT service management software, have we been able to harness the learnings from here and taken them out, crossed the boundary beyond IT into the enterprise at large? That brings us to the next question. Is enterprise service management something of interest to your organization? Have you thought about it? Is this something that you are confident of rolling out in your organization, taking your other business heads into confidence? Brilliant. Thank you for your responses. Most of you have, right? So, in essence, we need to, in this new age, stop, you know, being content with executing IT service management and move towards implementing enterprise service management, right? And just make the service management cross the boundary beyond IT. The fourth important element of this new age transformation is that IT service management should transform your customer expectations, leveraging technology. Another word which comes, buzzword, which comes, uh, almost in tandem with digital transformation is artificial intelligence, right? There's so much spoken about artificial intelligence, especially in the context of service management. And we've listed out a few areas, right, where AI can actually transform the way you run your service management process every single day, right? It is important. And broadly, it's about intelligent routing, predictive analytics, and providing contextual knowledge, be it automatic categorization of tickets, right? Or having a chatbot to talk to your end users, offering multiple solutions, right? Technician assignment. Do we intelligently assign agents to specific categories of requests based on the workload, based on the priority, right? And do we detect anomaly, right? Do we have to wait to hear from end users uh, on an incident, or do we actually proactively detect anomalies and address them? And do we actually use lessons from the past while dealing with tickets, and are we able to apply them to our current and our future service management practices by means of predictive analytics? I'm going to give you a few examples, right? The screen that you have in front of you, right? The circles represent the incident categories, the L1 incident categories by volume, right? And beneath that, you have a solutions performance meter where for category 2 and category 5 of tickets that are raised in the L1 support of my service desk, we have a couple of solutions each. Some of them are more efficient than the other. Okay, so your system must be able to automatically tell you that categories 2, 5, and 6 require a whole lot more of knowledge management focus, right? Because one, they are, the volume of incidents in these categories is a lot higher than the rest. Two, the efficacy of solutions in these categories is not as much as we desire them to be, right? So would you have a system that prompts you to put your knowledge management efforts in the right place, right? And let's say you're planning a change, right? And you schedule a start and an end time. Do you have a mechanism where you can be prompted that this particular window may not be the best window for this category of change, because our prior experience tells us that there's a high risk of failure when a change to this category is rolled out in this time frame, right? Now, the third case that I want to give you is the end user experience. Now, we have, in all of us have phones which have these intelligent assistants, be it the Google Assistant or Siri or Alexa or whatever, right? Why can't we think of intelligent assistants, right? That can be the brightest mind in the service desk. That can be one of a virtual employee, a virtual staff in our service management operations, right? Why can't we call that assistant? Why can't we ask for the status of our tickets, right? Why can't we ping that assistant? Why can't we uh, ask questions? Why can't we proactively get solutions, right? So, as IT services teams, we should be constantly looking at technologies, leveraging technologies to make our process efficient, right? And transform customer experiences. Which brings us to the next poll of the day. How many of us here can say that AI is a definite part of our service desk strategy in the next 2 years? All right. So about 70% of you say yes, and 30% of you may still be looking at the orange light or the red light, right? But the point is, in the transformed scheme of things, we should move from servicing end users to transforming user experience, which means we'll have to leverage technology and be on the constant lookout for new technologies that can actually take our service management operations to the next level. Finally, the fifth way IT service management teams can deal with digital disruption is we should try to close the gap between stakeholders. Now, let me actually start this with a poll. You use a service management software, right? But how many of you say the email is still the primary way users raise tickets to your service desk, in spite of telling them that you have a self-service portal, in spite of putting the posters around, in spite of you evangelizing um, the need for self-help, you put up the templates, artifacts, but still, how many of us say the email is primary, is the primary mode by which users raise tickets to your service desk? Now, almost it's a little over 50%, right? And that's an interesting insight, because what happens is, whatever we do, we brought service management. When it started, it was in the inbox, right? And 30 years down the line, 30 years of service management tools, and we have a webinar where over half of us say that email is still the way people use to raise tickets to our service desk, right? So, which means user behaviors are not going to change. It's very difficult. How about us being flexible, us being receptive to changing times, us, using technology, take service management back to the inbox. Now, here's a screenshot of an add-in that we have for our service management tool with Outlook. Now, this add-in sits in the Outlook mailbox as this little blue icon. So any mail that is opened, uh, has this little blue icon that users can click, and in one click, that email can be converted into a ticket, right? Be it an incident or a service request. In and from the point of view of the technicians, you know, they can track and manage the tickets in their inbox, right? You can assign it to a group, or pick the ticket up or assign it to a different technician. All of this with this little add-in sitting on Outlook. You don't actually have to log into the self-service portal. You don't actually have to log into your service management tool. The point is, I'm not making a case for email-based ticketing uh, or email-based ticket management and service management functions. But what I'm saying is, 30 years down the line, end user behavior has changed little. So why don't we use technology and supplement their experience, complement their experience by providing them better channels, better bridges? For example, this is a Slack conversation, right? I'm sure most of you have tools like Slack in your organization. But how many of us give users the ability to raise a ticket, to convert a conversation into an IT ticket? Now, we can boast about creating channels. We can like the self-service. But what is important is not creating channels that no one wants to use or there is a lot of resistance to, but actually trying to be where our users are and bridge the gap between them, be it an Outlook mailbox, be it a Slack conversation, right? Which brings us to the last poll of the day. How many of us, what percentage of our incoming tickets come through the self-service portal? This is interesting. This is interesting, right? The numbers are going up. And you know what? The answers don't surprise us at all, because almost 50% of the respondents say that less than 20% of their tickets come from the self-service portal, and another 30%, right, say that 20 to 50% of their tickets come in through the self-service portal, and only a quarter of the attendees today actually say that over 50% of their tickets come in through the self-service portal, right? And instead of trying to fight user behavior, all I say is, in the new scheme of things, let's build bridges. Let's go back to the inbox. Let's go back to the conversations, but still, execute it better with the technology that we have in hand, right? So the bottom line is, move from building channels to building bridges and close the gap between the stakeholders, right? Over the past 40 minutes, we saw what digital transformation is, right? And what IT needs to do to step up the game. And for a large part, we saw how we, as IT service management teams, can transform ourselves, in our everyday jobs, in our everyday practices, in our everyday processes, right? How do we move up the value chain, right? How do we transform ourselves? Now, these are 5 tangible ideas that we could come up with, right? Where you have to transform to being the control center of IT, where you need to look beyond metrics, connect the dots, have an analytics strategy, where you need to proliferate your service management best practices beyond the boundaries of IT into the enterprise, where you transform user experience leveraging technologies like AI, and where you stop hanging on to channels and you start building bridges. Now, that is, in a sense, the crux of what we want you to know on being prepared to ace this digital transformation disruptive. It is not high sounding. It is not something intangible. All of these things are tangible. These are things that we can start from day one, from today. And we wish you good luck in acing the digital transformation disruption. Thank you very much. We would be very happy to take questions now. So we don't have any questions, and please feel free to write to me. My email address is here. It's my first name dot last name at ManageEngine.com, kumaravel.ramakrishnan at ManageEngine.com. We will, of course, share the presentation to you, and we will keep you notified if you are a winner of the polls, and we'll send you the vouchers by email. We thank you for your time today. We appreciate the attention. We appreciate the patience, and we look forward to meeting you in another webinar from ManageEngine. Thank you very much.